December 8th, 1987, and in the middle of an international test match, we might be about to see an umpire get into a fist fight. It's the second test between Pakistan and England in Faisalabad, and matches between these two teams over the past year have been overshadowed by the tense subject of umpiring. It perhaps started during an earlier Pakistan tour of England, where Pakistan passionately appealed for a caught behind when the ball had clearly hit the ground on replay. Or perhaps when Javed Miandad was given LBW for just his second time in his career during the 87 World Cup held in England. Although that 87 World Cup did have them, we are in a time when neutral umpires still wasn't a rule, and the question of an umpire's home team bias remained as strong as ever. In the first test of this series, England were on the receiving end of some questionable umpiring decisions in the days ahead, losing by an innings and 87 runs. The speed in which the umpire's finger was raised only heightening tensions. Chris Broad openly refused to leave the crease after being given out, only walking after Graham Gooch coaxed him into doing so. The opening wicket of the second test would be no different. You might be thinking, that actually looked pretty adjacent, maybe hitting middle and off, only he wasn't given out LBW, he was given out caught. And even in this hazy footage, you can see why the English might feel aggrieved. Another Englishman would be out to the same fate soon after, a potential LBW given out as caught. Into day 2, now with England in the field, a close chance for a bat pad catch would not go England's way, and the discontent among the English would grow. Standing umpire Shakur Rana would talk to captain Mike Gatting, seeking to discuss what he saw as potential dissent towards an umpire. As Rana walked away, the stump mic picking up Gatting's thoughts perfectly.
No, it's alright, off you go. One rule for one for another.
This tense situation would come to a head in the dying embers of day 2. Mike Gatting is seen gesturing to one of his fielders as the bowler is coming into bowl, and at square leg, Shakur Rana calls a stop to the game. Gatting walks straight to Rana at square leg and gives him both barrels. As all good arguments do, this one has two sides. By the letters of the laws, gestures like the one Gatting was giving to his fielders could be considered a means to distract the batter. The umpire can call the ball dead and award penalty runs. But Gatting and the media that covered this incident would add colour to the black and white of these laws. Gatting had brought on off-spinner Eddie Hemmings to eke out a few more deliveries before stumps. And before he started bowling, he told non-striker Salim Malik that they were going to move a fielder. Gatting said that his gestures as Hemmings was moving into bowl were to tell that fielder to stop in place and that he was in the right spot. They were done behind the back of the batter and basically out of his eye line. It's difficult to see how they would distract the batter. By the letter of the law, was the umpire wrong? No. But you could see where Gatting was coming from. With what had happened in these last 2 tests, a situation which could have been resolved amicably and without conflict erupted into a war of words between captain and umpire. Rana is said to have called Gatting a cheat, while Gatting berated him over what had happened in the past few days. The two needed to be physically separated by another English player, as the day ended in hostility, but with no fistfights. The drama though wouldn't end there. Umpire Rana refused to take the field until Gatting had issued him a written apology. Gatting was resolute in his actions, but at risk of this blowing into a wider diplomatic incident, Gatting was ordered to issue an apology from the powers that be back home in England. That match would end up as a draw, and England's 1987 tour of Pakistan would be lost 1-0. For around 13 years, this acrimonious test series would be England's last in Pakistan. As they travelled the world, the sour taste of what had happened would remain stuck as a bad memory for more than a decade. But at the turn of the millennium, and almost at its lowest ebb, England would revisit the site of past disputes and find out just how powerful resolving past memories could become. The 2 years leading up to England's 2000 tour of Pakistan were some of its roughest, performance-wise, in recent memory. Their hopes sprung eternal as they travelled to Australia in 1998, seeking to regain the Ashes from its old enemy. But even though Shane Warne would be missing for most of the series, Australia would demonstrate why the urn had been in their possession for a decade. At the end of a 5-test series, England would only manage a single win in Melbourne, losing the series 3-1. Stuart MacGill and Glenn McGrath would top the wicket-takers list, while Aussie captain-in-waiting Steve Waugh would score nearly 500 runs at an average of 83.
17 test hundreds for Stephen Waugh.
Another visit to Aussie shores, leaving empty-handed. But worse still was yet to come. On the biggest stage of them all, England hosted the 1999 World Cup. The side led by Alex Stewart weren't considered favourites to win the World Cup, but as they had done in every World Cup before that, they were at least expected to reach the knockout stage. Even this would prove a hill too steep. Defeats to South Africa and India in the group stage, as well as a poor net run rate, resigned them to their worst World Cup performance in history up till that point. At their home event, they were eliminated at the first hurdle. There would be no coming back from this for Captain Alex Stewart. This was a time when there was typically just one captain for both one day and test sides. There was really one clear favourite to take the mantle, and that was Nasser Hussain. Anyone though thinking that simply changing the captain of this team would magically make them better would be sorely mistaken. Nasser Hussain had a much bigger task than just being the captain of this side, and it would only get worse before it got any better. New Zealand would be their next opponents, at home for a 4-match test series. The Black Caps had arrived in England as the worst ranked test nation in the world, and there was talk in the English press how this would be the best opponents for an England team seeking to rebuild its credibility. Things started off well enough. In the first test, England win by 7 wickets, but closer inspection saw the fragility of England's top order on display. In their first innings, they crumbled for 7 for 45 in just 24 overs. Allett, Doull, Cairns and Nash harnessing a swinging Dukes ball to good effect.
He's gone as well.
The unlikely batting hero was fast bowler Alex Tudor. He wouldn't be there for the second test, but that fragility remained. With what would be a bad decision to bat first, England would be bowled all out for 186. Alex Stewart and Nasser Hussain the only scorers of note. New Zealand set 358 in their first innings and were finally set a total of 58 to win, which they reached comfortably, the series deadlocked heading into the third test. The result, however, wasn't the only bad news for England. While in the field, Nasser Hussain broke his finger, stopping a ball. He was out for at least the third test, and Mark Butcher was stand-in captain. If it wasn't for rain, they probably would have lost that test. New Zealand scoring 496 declared, far more than England's first and second innings scores, combined, before the game was ultimately declared a draw. Returning for the deciding test of this series, any kind of honeymoon period for Captain Nasser Hussain was well and truly over. England would lose that fourth test match and the series 2-1. The worst part of it would happen on the fourth and final day. Needing 155 more runs to win, with 8 wickets in hand, Mike Atherton and Graham Thorpe were at the crease as they added 30 runs to the board, before Thorpe edged to slip. It would trigger the final batting collapse of the series. From 2 for 91 at the start of day 4, they would be all out for 162, losing by 83 runs.
And New Zealand have won the match. They have won the series and they have played excellent cricket.
Amidst a hail of boos and lowered heads, they walked off the oval, having lost the series to the world's worst ranked test team. They themselves were now ranked the worst test team in cricket. In the way that New Zealand would play in that fourth test, and in the series overall really, it was evident to see the differences even between these two sides. It wasn't skill, although having someone like Chris Cairns in the side certainly helped the Black Caps. While New Zealand had played with fortitude and to the best of their abilities, England had been ground down by a mixture of their own past performances and the wider responses to them. Their earlier leader, Alex Stewart, had been axed from his job. When they looked to the crowd for support, they were met with boos and songs that sung, "We are the worst team in the world." And don't even bother looking at the press.
Looks a good wicket. England, if they can get 400 or 500 on the board, that would be a pleasant change, wouldn't it?
They wore the 3 lines on their shirt, and it almost looked like an anchor around their necks. This was the task before Nasser Hussain, to rebuild a jaded group of men into a team once again, and more than that, reinstall what the 3 lines were built upon, and hopefully get the fans back on their side in the process. Having just captained England to a lost series against New Zealand, Nasser Hussain faced the hostile media and boos from the crowd. And it was this sea of boos that would come to represent the next phase of our story. At that moment, Nasser not only acknowledged the boos from the crowd, but also the message behind them. That what they were doing wasn't acceptable and they needed to do better. Enough was enough. That crescendo of boos would also help to grease the gears of change behind the scenes in English cricket. Decisions were being made that would lead to significant structural reforms. First was that Zimbabwean Duncan Fletcher had finally begun work as England coach. Crazy to think about now, but he was England's first ever foreign coach, and he came into the role at a time where county cricket had much more sway over team selections. Players back then would get picked for the national team, and even just days before a test match would start, they would still play for their county. In Fletcher's era, national success would start to be prioritised over county success, even if the counties were less than pleased about it. And in order to ensure that these priorities were set in stone, a central contract scheme was also put in place, much like national teams do nowadays, giving them priority on player availability. Structural changes they might have been, but they wouldn't have much of an immediate impact on the pitch. For that, Nasser and Duncan were striving to change the culture of this team. At its fundamental heart, they wanted England to find its backbone once again, to craft a team willing to fight for one another and grind their way out of pressure situations. It wasn't really so much about results at this point. Even if they weren't the best team on the field, they wanted England to be a difficult team to get a result out of. Such a change would require patience and conviction. Their tour of South Africa would be lost 2-1, the first test an innings defeat at the Wanderers. It was another batting collapse, this time at the hands of Alan Donald and Sean Pollock, taking 19 wickets between them for the match. Their solitary victory of the series occurred in the 5th test at Centurion, one that itself is remembered for all the wrong reasons. It involved persistent rain delays and a captain's curious declaration that would lead to the downfall of one of South Africa's most beloved cricket captains. Glimmers of hope would finally emerge in the home summer of 2000. After winning a series against Zimbabwe, they would battle the likes of Lara, Chanderpaul, Ambrose and Walsh, defending their home turf over a 5-match test series. The result 3-1. That same ground, which saw Nasser booed in the press conference around a year earlier, now witnessed an English victory by 158 runs.
This match, I'm just very proud of my team, to be honest.
But it's one thing to beat a team at home, even one as strong as the West Indies were still back then, and quite another to do it away from home. When England left to travel the globe in late 2000, their travels took them southeast towards the Asian subcontinent, and to one particular place that they hadn't visited for 13 odd years. At long last, an England team would be retracing the steps of Mike Gatting and his team of 1987. In Pakistan, Nasser Hussain's team would indeed find out whether they had found that backbone, and if they could resolve past memories of old. England's test series in Pakistan would kick off in Lahore.
Well struck. That's Trescothick at his best.
While pacers Wasim Akram and Abdul Razak would open the bowling, England's true examination would be against a 4-pronged spin attack, headlined by Saqlain Mushtaq and Mushtaq Ahmed. The boundaries like the ones you see here were the exception rather than the rule. For the first 50-odd overs, the run rate would stay below 3 and over. Inch by inch, as the maidens grew, Mike Atherton and Marcus Trescothick were made to earn their runs. But slowly, that's what they did. Both reaching half-centuries after lunch, Trescothick would finally succumb to Saqlain Mushtaq for 71, spending over 3.5 hours at the crease. Graham Thorpe in at 3 gets a reprieve at slip early in his innings. After tea on 73, Atherton would join Trescothick, spending 4.5 hours at the crease. With both openers gone, cue a mini English collapse.
He's got him. Yes, up goes the finger. Very quick on his feet. Well, he's perished. He's chipped it to cover.
Stewart and Hussain gone, and after 75 balls faced, Hick gone for 16. England 5 for 225. It was a decent score, but they needed more. As they were peppered with spin, Graham Thorpe and Craig White started the counter-attack. As Graham Thorpe held up an end, Craig White fought back. The two put on a 166-run partnership, Thorpe scoring perhaps his hardest fought century of his career.
That's going to bring up Graham Thorpe's 100. Delight, elation all round from Graham Thorpe.
With 118 and only 2 boundaries, he was dismissed by Saqlain. More than 7 hours at the crease, facing 301 balls in the process. Craig White wouldn't reach his own century, another victim to Saqlain. By the end of that innings, Saqlain would take all of England's 8 wickets, conceding 164 runs, bowling 74 overs and 20 maidens. England declared on 8 for 480 in the second session of day 3. Pakistan's innings started more aggressively. 63 runs were put on the board by Saeed Anwar and Shahid Afridi. before, of all England's spin options, Graham Hick got the breakthrough.
They're asking the question, and the finger's gone up.
The aggression continued. England's long innings had left Pakistan with less time to work with if they wanted a result. With neither England's wicket taking nor Pakistan's run scoring going quick enough to change it, this match was heading to a draw. Yusuf Yohana would still put on a show though. He would get the highest score of this test here, 124 off 308 balls. His innings finally ended by Ashley Giles. Halfway through day 5, Pakistan would be all out for 401, trailing by 79. But time was basically up. The first test at Lahore would be a draw. Yes, I know, we're in the 21st century. Aren't draws supposed to be boring? But humour me for a bit. Nasser wanted his team to fight and to be a difficult opponent. And well, didn't they do that? How long did each of them spend at the crease? Trescothick, 3.5 hours. Atherton and White, 4.5. Thorpe, more than 7. Even the tail enders stayed out there for more than 2 hours each. They might go into the second test with a big fat 0 in the wins column, but so did Pakistan. And that backbone might just be starting to reveal itself. Faisalabad hosted the second test, the series still wide open. Pakistan had made a few changes, most notably Danish Kanaria getting his test debut for Mushtaq Ahmed. Darren Gough wanted his presence known early on.
They're appealing for LBW. I think it's still a touch high.
Shahid Afridi fighting back before nicking to the slips for 10. Saeed Anwar making best use of conditions towards his first 50 of the series, until he was dismissed by Ashley Giles. Inzamam, unluckily, wouldn't last the over. Yusuf Yohana and Salim Alahi pushed Pakistan past 100 before Giles sets a trap for Salim and he's gone. Yusuf Yohana and Moin Khan would get past 50 while Saqlain Mushtaq scored a hard-fought 34. On the back of an Ashley Giles fifer, Pakistan were all out for 316 runs. Pakistan's pace bowlers would be a force to be reckoned with, Trescothick copping 2 bounces off them before dealing with another for 4.
That's a better shot from Trescothick. That's a much better response to the bouncer. It's much better to try and play it on this pitch.
Trescothick ultimately becoming Danish Kanaria's first ever test wicket. We honestly couldn't leave the sight of Gadding versus Rana without a little something at the expense of Nasser Hussain.
Oh, it's a leg break. A big appeal there, and I'm afraid Buckler's given it the finger. I wonder there, that's whether he got a bit of a raw deal. I think he might have got a bit of bat on that.
Every replay making it worse. An unlikely companion, night watchman Ian Salisbury would partner Graham Thorpe to make 97 runs together. When Salisbury was gone, Thorpe would continue for some 34 more overs. England close to 300 runs, finally dismissed by Wasim Akram. England's innings going past Pakistan's 316 by a swashbuckling Craig White as others faltered. England all out for 342, leading by 26 runs.
That's big. Craig White has given that everything. It's flown over long off.
Shahid Afridi's aggressive streak would get the better of him early on. Pakistan still trailed by 10 runs, but a rejigged batting lineup saw Salim Alahi and Abdul Razak combine to motor past England's first innings score, aiming for a match-winning position. Too short of their 100-run partnership, Alahi would be gone off a disappointing shot. Abdul Razak and Inzamam-ul-Haq's 148-run partnership would get them to 3 for 259. Here, Razak given the chance to score his century before Pakistan declared a 3 for 269. England needed 244 runs to win.
Well played, Abdur Razak. The bat raised, the crowd applaud, and we've also got the declaration.
In reality though, England would never seek to chase the total down, a decision helped by a batting collapse that left England 5 wickets down for 110. Mike Atherton and his stout overwatch guided England to stumps on day 5, and to another draw. Leaving Faisalabad, England was still in this contest. What started as a best-of-3 test series had now become a one-match contest. In Pakistan's test fortress of Karachi, they had never lost before. It would be winner take all. And for all the humdrum about 2 back-to-back drawn test matches, the theatre, the hijinks, and the result of this decider would more than make up for it. becoming one of the most memorable matches in the history of Test cricket. At Karachi, England would go into this last Test match with 0 changes. It was the same lineup that started the first Test. But Pakistan would exchange one great with another. Wasim Akram was out, replaced by Waqar Younis. Arshad Khan was also dropped for Imran Nazir. Pakistan won the toss and batted first. Saeed Anwar would be gone cheaply. England's pace attack would do damage early on. But it wasn't Darren Gough or Andy Caddick to get the wicket. Coming on, first change, Nasser Hussain brought on Marcus Trescothick. Imran Nazir would be his first and only wicket of his 76 Test career. If they had DRS, he might have had Inzamam-ul-Haq too.
Big shout! Whoa, that was desperately close. It hit Inzaman on the back leg.
The pictures showing both sides of the argument. Caddick gets the third, and England may start to feel like they're on a bit of a roll, especially if they can get a couple more wickets. But that is a big if. In baking hot conditions, Inzamam-ul-Haq and Yusuf Yohana would start to score. Shot after shot, whoever it was bowling, sending the ball to the boundary. Pakistan's score was going up. Now Inzamam brings up his century and Pakistan's 250 deep into day one. Yusuf not far behind.
Wicket. Found the gap. There it is. 100 to Yusuf Yohana, his second in 3 innings against England. Great achievement.
It would end up becoming a massive 259-run partnership. It took a bright new day for it to be broken. A difficult catch down low. Inzamam was dismissed 3 overs later, but now at 5 for 325, it made the basis of an important innings score. England would have more luck with the next 5 wickets. Only 80 runs would be scored between them. Pakistan all out for 405. In England's reply, it only took 7 overs for Culminating to be introduced, but Waqar Younis would take the first scalp of Marcus Trescothick, a great catch. Bringing in Nasser Hussain. Captain Nasser was having a really bad series with the bat. 3 single-digit scores so far and a high of 23. But in this situation, his team needed him to stay in the middle. Through sheer force of will, he hung in there for nearly 4.5 hours. It would not be pretty, but by the end of it, it would be a captain's knock of 51 off 209 balls. And with Michael Atherton at the other end, creating a 134-run partnership. England would need it because their struggles in the lower middle order continued. Craig White yet again providing support. Trailing by 96 runs, Atherton's innings would finally come to a close. His gritty series form reaching its apex, 125 runs off 430 balls. England would be all out for 388, still trailing but only by 17 runs. The 3 Lions found themselves going out to bowl for the last time this series. And right here, we can grasp what all of this hard work was for. England, through their own grit and determination, had created a situation where a series victory was within their grasp, and an opportunity to break Pakistan's unbeaten record in Karachi. All of the sweat and bruises would come down to their efforts in the final 2 and a bit days. And on the flip side, Pakistan themselves faced the prospect of losing at home. The pressure was on.
There's a man out there. What a catch!
Within the first 10 overs, Pakistan were 2 down. Inzamam would attack in the second half of day 4 with 4 boundaries. But Ashley Giles would serve up something truly special.
Bowled him! Pegged back the off stump.
At stumps, Pakistan were 3 for 71, 88 runs ahead. The 3-match Test series would come down to the last day. The start of day 5 would see Gough dismiss night watchman Culminating cheaply. But to get into the fragile middle order, England faced a particularly big hurdle, the highest run scorer of the series. With day 5 wearing on, Yusuf Yohana and Salim Elahi make their way toward a 50-run partnership. They would reach it, but it wouldn't go any further. Yusuf gone for 24. The next over, Elahi was out. As more and more fielders were brought in, more wickets would fall. Some fielders serving as catchers, and others barricades.
Now, they're going for a single. Oh, Whack has run out by more. All sorts of things happen there. The short leg field has been hit on the body. Whack has been run out. Stewart's hit the stumps. The main thing is, it's another wicket to England.
Marcus Trescothick won't mind this. He's taken a blow for his country.
An in-swinging Yorker dismisses Canaria and finishes Pakistan's innings. From 5 for 128, they were all out for 158. England set 176 runs to win. But the biggest question of all, as we headed into the final throws of day 5, was if there would be enough time, and more specifically, light. With a chance to win this series, England must attack. Pakistan were fighting to save the series and their streak, but the pace of Waqar and Razak was coming nicely onto the English bat. That total looking smaller and smaller as more boundaries were scored. As a captain, if Pakistan's Moeen Khan can't get the 10 wickets necessary to win the match, or stop England from scoring, he has one final option to save the series. Test matches in Pakistan, like at other grounds around the world, have to deal with bad light towards the end of the day. As soon as that sun starts to set, stumps is usually not far behind. With that in mind, between you and me, with all these other options not working, if Pakistan were to, make a few more field adjustments to normal, maybe change ends between overs a little bit slower, and have a few more conferences between teammates, over time, that might be enough to force a draw. Every team, regardless of colours or country, has at least considered doing this at one point or another to save a game. But at none for 26, umpire Steve Buckner was watching what was going on. He approaches Moeen Khan about his time wasting.
I'm afraid Moeen Khan, he's been taking his time, moving the fielders around. Atherton and Trescothick have managed to keep patient. Buckner's lost his patience now.
And with pace still leaking runs, he brings on Saqlain Mushtaq, getting Atherton to break the opening partnership. Spin now at both ends, Trescothick sends Canaria for 6. His aggression would be his ultimate downfall. England 2 for 52, and those shadows are getting longer and longer. Throughout this series, the openers set the tone and scored runs for England. But whereas in earlier series we saw almost total collapses in the middle order, it was Graham Thorpe that has been the engine that's driven England forward. As Alex Stewart walks for 6, there's one final task for him to complete.
He's asking the question, and Stewart's gone. I didn't see the finger come up.
I think he walked. Stewart, he knew he got a little inside edge there.
Graham's Hick and Thorpe push themselves between the wickets. Moeen Khan accidentally takes the bails off here when receiving the ball, but just look at the pickup by Inzamam-ul-Haq. One hand and a direct hit, but not out. They push themselves even harder and harder between the wickets, bringing England to triple figures. That target is getting ever closer. Pakistan just can't stop these 1s and 2s.
That's very good running between the wickets from Graham Thorpe as well.
By now, the players' shadows are gone. The shadow from the stands enveloping the entire playing area. Graham Hicks somehow gets a reverse sweep to the boundary for 4. With less than 10 overs left, 31 runs are needed, and the game is slipping away from Pakistan. The over rate slows to a crawl. As he brings back Waqar Younis with even more field changes, umpire Buckner approaches Moeen Khan and gives him an official warning for time wasting.
And that's an official warning to the Pakistanis from Steve Buckner about time wasting.
Moeen Khan was stating that his fielders couldn't see the ball, but in those days, umpires only consulted batters over issues with bad light. If the batters thought it was okay for them to be in the middle, play would continue. And maybe that warning would end up being worth it. It was getting really dark now. It's difficult to show you because of the pictures and the camera technology, but worse still was the fact that they had to face Waqar Younis in such bad light. Thorpe gets to 50, perhaps the greatest 50 he ever scored for England. But Graham Hick would finally miss one. And who can really blame him in these conditions? Out for 40, an awesome 40. England needed 20 more runs to win. I couldn't imagine being a new batter to walk out at this point, but that is exactly what Captain Nasser Hussain did. Staring down Waqar Younis, he throws all his weight behind this one and gets a reprieve behind the stumps. He soon says to Thorpe that he can't see the ball. It was down to Thorpe. Nasser at that point was no more than a willing runner. Saqlain gets one past him, but it's edged for 4.
It's an edge, I couldn't pick it up to start with. I'm not sure Wackard did. It's going all the way. Moen's paid the price for not having a slip in.
Moen just stares at square leg in despair. They legitimately can't see the ball. Or this next one.
That's through. It's through. All the way to the boundary. None of the fielders moved. They couldn't see the ball.
While no one else could pick up the ball, Graham Thorpe was seeing it just fine. And all that hard work and courage had finally paid off.
Inside edge. There it is. They're getting back for two. England have won. What a victory in the dark. Nasser Hussain can't believe it. Look at that. Look at that balcony.
The win in the dark stands as one of England's most memorable Test victories. And now you know why. Graham Thorpe's role in this series, perhaps his magnum opus. England had won the series 1-0. This wouldn't be the end of their travels abroad. They would go to Sri Lanka and win there as well. Nasser Hussain would continue to captain this team up until 2003. Sachin Tendulkar would call him the best captain he'd ever played against. Through 45 tests, he would finish with a winning record, but only by a little. 17 wins, 15 losses and 13 draws. So why is it then that many English call him one of their finest ever captains? Well, earlier in this video, we spoke about certain qualities that Nasser wanted this team to be known for. To play for one another with determination and courage, to find their backbone and to be a tough team to win against, home and away. From the worst Test team in the world to what we've just seen in Pakistan, it's hard to argue that he didn't accomplish that. It is this hard-fought team foundation that, in my opinion, would influence the way that the 2005 Ashes was won, just 2 years after Nasser's reign had ended. Duncan Fletcher was still the English coach, and it would also influence the truly world-beating English team that would follow in the years after. In resolving past memories, Nasser Hussain's England rediscovered what it meant to wear the 3 lions on your chest. And to me, that's more important than any win-loss record. Hey guys, cheers for sticking around all the way to the end of the video. If you liked it, please leave a thumbs up down below and consider subscribing if you're new. And until the next one, take care and I'll see you soon.